Said I was not here in the last meeting, and I believe Commissioner Franklin made the court aware of a problem that we had out there. I did talk to my foreman over the weekend and again today, and that problem has been taken care of. So I would move that we accept this subdivision into the county streets and drainage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cooper, second by Commissioner Franklin. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So all voted for. Item 3, Esther Scarborough, discussion action regarding refunding of remaining 10% of scroll security deposit for Windsor Heights Subdivision Phase 2 to Baxley Development, Inc.
So what that little breakdown on that sheet is, just refunding their money.
So it'll be, am I looking at it right, 7,500?
Yes, sir, I believe so. Mm-hmm.
I move that we refund the remaining 10%.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Cooper, second by Commissioner Kirkendall. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So all voted for. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, item 4, budget workshop. Judge Caraway is sick and cannot be here. I talked to him yesterday, and I've had some conversations with Angela, and he said that basically what he had wanted to do today was to let Angela give us a general breakdown of what our appraised values might look like, and the court to kind of start thinking about cuts that were going to need to be made so that we could lower the amount we'd have to take out of contingency, if any. We hope to not take any, and just sort of kind of set the stage for future budget hearings. You want to give us a brief? We don't have to be brief.
Okay, in your budget packet, you'll have several different reports, and the first report that we'll talk about is this one that talks about the proposed budgets for the different departments. What Judge Caraway did, and I gave you a copy of the budget reports, he sent out to each department, this one right here, the one that's rubber band.
Okay.
He sent out to each department a copy of their budget, and then they sent it back with the proposed. And then that's what you have a copy of here after they have been entered. And then I did a recap page for you, shows you exactly if which department had changes, which had no changes, and increases or decreases. And that's exactly what we have here. At the second page, the amount of increases by the fund. Your general fund increased overall $12,018. Your jury fund is $20,280 increase, and that's basically CPS, Child Protective Services, has increased. And then in your district clerk preservation fees, there was a decrease in that budget by $5,759, and then your justice court tech expenses increased by $1,775. So overall, the total was $28,314 that was increased through the departments. And then you have a full report that shows you each department and each fund.
Okay, now this 28,000, this has not factored in insurance increases and things like this, have the roads?
Or the salaries.
Well, they're in there?
No, it does not include salaries or insurance.
Oh, does not include salaries or insurance increases.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's just expenses from the departments.
Okay, on insurance increases, do you have that yet?
No, I was supposed to be getting it around the 3rd, so I should have it either by the end of this week or the beginning of the next week.
Okay.
But she did say, around 3%. That was just over the phone verbally.
Okay, well, assuming that 3% would be in the ballpark, how much would that increase be?
I have not.
Well, what's the line item for,
Well, I calculated it for you.
okay,
And just based on the adopted budget that we had from the previous year. I just took those line items and I multiplied by 3% to give us a rough estimate, and it was $51,285 overall.
Okay, so
51 what?
$51,285.
okay, so that would be the amount of increase. Okay.
If you would look at this sheet now, which has a recap of all the information with our taxes,
Okay.
it will also include your increase in your insurance, under the 3% salary increase estimates and your 2% salary increase estimates. There is a line item there by fund, how much those items would increase.
Okay, a 3% salary increase would, increase how much?
Okay, in the general fund, your estimated salary increases, if you go 3%, just in Fund 18, is $234,035.
Now, when you say just 18, what about, what other,
Mm-hmm.
what other funds are there to be added to salaries?
There's general fund, see, the way we broke it down here is by the tax rate in your collections on your taxes. And so we included that in your expenses versus your revenue. And so you have, your general fund, your increase is $234,035. Your jury fund is $421. And your road and bridge increase at 3% is $44,577.
Okay, so what's that total?
$279,033.
That's on Ken.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, and then from there, I took the insurance increases. The overall insurance increases for these three funds which affects your taxes is $50,469.
okay.
Now, you say all insurance, is that on fixed assets and everything?
No, that's your health insurance, I
Yeah,
apologize,
okay.
yes.
No, that's fine,
Mhm,
okay.
That is health insurance. Then, your increases into your 2015 budget, which ties back to your proposed budget that we just went over, is $32,298. Your estimated retirement increase based on their salary increases, your total is $39,929.62. And then your payroll taxes is $21,346. And then if you look at each column, it's broken down among your different funds. Your general fund, your jury fund, your road and bridge fund. And these three funds make up your tax revenues.
Okay, but as a matter of figuring, consolidated is really what we need to look at, because
Yes.
how it's broken down and paid for. Well, okay, now what about things like utilities? Have all those been looked at?
Judge Caraway, when he reviewed the proposed budgets, he reviewed those, and he did decrease the maintenance, the utilities.
So he's already made the corrections and stuff in here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
From his perspective, yes, sir. So when I went to talk to the appraisal district on Friday, they gave me an estimated net taxable value, which is at the top of the page, of $2,850,825,136. That consists of your net taxable value is $2,105,436,186, and your minerals is $745,388,950. Now, Alex told me that this, with the appraisal district, he told me that the minerals hearing is Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And that number will change. He said he can give me an updated report after Tuesday. Then again, the ones that did not attend that meeting will be on July the 10th. So all these numbers are very early in the stage, and they will all change.
Which way?
Well,
Should go up.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. He thinks that may be a little high, or you think it can go up? You think it could go up?
Well, the 88 million that's in contestant,
Mm-hmm.
he's thinking maybe we'll get about 40 of that.
Okay.
40
I
million.
see what you're saying now. I thought you were talking about the minerals.
Yeah,
Okay, yes, the protested values is $88,297,180. And he said in history, they've collected about 50% of that. 50% may,
Okay.
be added to that.
Is the full 88 million in the 745 million?
No, that does not, that
Okay.
2.8 billion does not include the 88 million.
Okay,
He does
now,
not include it in his net taxable
the
value.
2.8, is that still subject to homestead exemptions and all the other stuff that,
That's after
That's
all
after.
that's been taken out.
Okay,
That's
so
your
that's-
net taxable value.
that's taxable value without a collection percentage applied to it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So then if you take, let's say 44, we've got 2850, and if we get 44 to that, so that'd be $2,894,000,000, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
What I did from the next the next sentence, if we get 50%, which is the number he gave me, your protested values equals $44,148,590 that we will receive. That's an additional $247,232 in tax revenue. Now that's at 100% collection rate, which you probably won't receive 100%. Last year's budget was based on 99%
Yeah.
collection rate.
correct.
But that gives you a little, an idea about how much your additional tax revenue could be if we receive 50% of those protested values.
Okay, so we come down here to the 19,351,000.
That's how much
Okay,
based on the,
19,351, and you're saying if we get to 50%, we would add another $247,000 to that. So that's now $19,598.
19 million what?
19,598,000. And let's say the 3% salary increase and the other adjustments to the budget that you've outlined. That's 20,412,000.
correct,
Well, let's say 413, I'm rounding off. So that's 19,598. That's 8. That's $805,000 short.
yes, sir.
Okay. So that, I think, tells us right off that,
I got 925.
you got 9,
925. Did I do something wrong?
I don't know, I may
You
have,
did 2413?
2413 minus 19,598. 8 and 13 is 5, 10.
No, you're right.
815,000.
You're right.
How much?
805. You're right.
805.
Yep, I saw where I did it.
So, the judge wanted us to kind of get a feel of the court this morning. I don't think we're gonna take 805 out of the contingency fund to balance this budget.
Are we so far, we're not usually that far behind, are we, or that, we're usually pretty close, huh? 800 sounds a lot, 800,000.
800 is what?
Sounds close, or a lot more than what it usually is, huh? Usually we're pretty close to
No, we were
staying within.
900 something thousand last year.
What?
But you can't continue to do that every year.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a major expense we had this year or something.
Because we're, what did we end 13 with?
In the contingency,
Yeah.
it was,
I didn't bring my audit report, but,
on our books now, we have $2,561,193 in contingency. That's in our general ledger.
okay, that's what we're carrying. If we took 800,000 from it, you bring it down 1.7, I don't think we're gonna do that.
No, I think we had a kind of a drop dead at 2.5,
Yeah,
didn't we?
we know we're not gonna do that.
Attached to this sheet is what was proposed last year, and it shows you what it was last year. The revenues versus expenditures last year, that's what was presented to the court last year.
So basically, once we get the numbers this week, the estimations that you made with a 2% salary increase is 950, or minus 957,
Correct.
as opposed to 805 if we get 44?
The 805 is if you give a 3% increase, and the 957, and we did not take it in consideration, the 247 additional for that one.
So, I mean, regardless, if those numbers come in like we hope they do, we're still gonna be 805.
And I think Alex told me it's July the 20th for the actual certified value to come out.
Yeah, by law,
Everything now is
by law,
by
it's July
estimate.
25th, I think, but, you know, it's that. But he will have a good idea, but it, you know, it's not set in stone until he gives us the certified.
That's correct. It seems like your appraised values is basically just, every year paying for your raises.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, what's the thought of the commissioners?
Looking at the breakdown of the, each department, the only decrease or decreases that I see is in, building maintenance, which is 42,000. The, narcotics budget in the sheriff's department is 2,800. And then 5,000 in the district clerk preservation fees, so everything else either stayed the same or had an increase. Nobody ever wants to make cuts, but something's gonna have to take place. I mean,
Well, this is what the judge and I discussed yesterday. And this is what his thinking was, and I totally agree with it, that, the court needs to adopt guidelines, and, you know, my guideline is that where the economy is this year, and I'm not gonna vote for a tax increase. So I think that's what the court needs to decide, is if we're not gonna vote for a tax increase. And I think the timing is just not there. The, report that came out last week shows that last quarter, our economy in the United States contracted by 2.9%. Probably contracted by more than that. There's a lot of economists feel that the federal government's playing with figures, and it's actually worse than that.
You know, every year we go through that very same statement. The economy. And it never gets any, it don't get any better and it don't get any worse.
Oh, it's getting worse, Bob.
Yeah, but I mean, we still got to operate.
We've got to operate, but the people out there have got to live too.
You're right.
And
So, we just gotta make up our mind, are we gonna go up on a penny on the tax, or are we gonna cut services? I mean, that's just what it boils down to.
exactly. And that's what, you know, I mean, that's what this commissioner's court has to decide, because that's what's gonna guide us in everything we do. And, that's the reason, you know, I think the judge's intent today was to get a consensus of where this court wants to go, because
Yeah, I'm not against a penny increase, because everybody's operating, bare minimum right now.
Well, I'm not gonna vote for an increase.
I'm not gonna vote for an increase.
I would, be in agreement with, Commissioner Franklin. However, before I could vote for an increase, I would want for us to make the cuts. And like Bobby said, everybody's at a minimum, but before I could vote for an increase, I would want us to go through this budget and make every cut that we could possibly
Yeah.
make and still get
Well, I
by.
didn't say I'd vote for one, I just said I'm not against it.
I'm not against it either, but I would want first,
I'm not gonna
like Mr.
sit
Pelt
right here and
said.
say that I ain't gonna vote for an increase,
Yeah.
because it may come do that. At this point, a person does not need to make a stand.
Well, it had to be the last resort.
Okay, now,
If that's better terminology,
that's
Bob.
better terminology.
Okay.
Don't say you ain't gonna do something.
But it's gonna have to be, this court's gonna have to take, and not only this court, but this county's gonna have to take some cuts that show that they're serious about cutting,
Well,
before I would even think of.
I have got a major problem with this $12,700 increase in professional fees.
Where are you looking?
I got a major problem with that.
Where are we looking at?
General
That's probably
services.
our,
Yeah.
probably our, engineers and stuff.
This, I'm hoping some of this will be worked out in the new subdivision rules, because they're paying these engineers too doggone much money to show up out there just to walk around to do nothing.
Correct.
Well, I'm definitely against that increase.
What line item is he?
General services.
And I believe the records will show that Don King is just drawing money, doing nothing.
Well, I'm for any place that we can save funds, and the 12,700, I don't know where that can be defended or not, but you're gonna have to
Angela.
get into bigger figures than that.
What is the,
Yeah, but look at here, look at here. Here. Let me show you something. The budget for general services, for professional fees is $12,300. In 5 months, they've already spent $13,261.
Can we spend like $10,000 to $20,000 just increase over this last year for the stormwater engineer, Carolyn Lightning, just for that? So that's not only Don.
Well, I think we need,
I agree though.
I think we need to see some figures on why that's so high.
Well, I don't know where any of you read the Beaumont Enterprise today, but the Supreme Court upheld the EPA's authority
oh, wow,
to,
on the stormwater?
on this Clean Water Act, and to regulate the power plants and stuff like this. And all the figures, and no, I mean, whether you're talking about conservative figures, liberal figures, what, they all agree that it's gonna have a drastic effect on electricity and energy.
Can you work with Esther and y'all get us a proposal by the next budget, a justification why it has to go up?
Sure.
And break down who's getting what, where it's
We'll
going,
give you a breakdown.
and a justification why it's increasing.
Let me just
Show
add a
you
little
why
bit,
it's-
add a little bit more to that. Things that are happening that may make these fees and stuff hard to nail down.
Yeah.
The Corps of Engineers, in talking to Esther last week, they notified her that it was their belief that Hardin County, under the Clean Water Act and the federal decision that's come down, and now you've got a Supreme Court decision come down, that Hardin County, because they are a participant in the FEMA insurance program for this county, that it was gonna be Hardin County's responsibility to police, monitor compliance with the Clean Water Act on private property. Now, that is something that, I think that the state should vigorously resist. The head of the TCEQ told me they were resisting it, but he did not know whether they'd be successful. Because what the problem is, the state of Texas and Hardin County, we all draw a lot of federal grants. And when you draw federal grants, well then, you agree that you'll comply with all the laws that come down. And there's just really hardly any way that Hardin County, and this would be Esther and Aaron, are gonna be able to keep up with what's happening on all pieces of private property and notify those people that they're going to have a permit before they can dig a ditch on their own property or dig a pond on their own property or do anything on their own property without the Corps of Engineers giving them a permit, which the Corps has been assigned to permitting by the president because EPA does not have the staff. And this is gonna be very serious business.
3 guys permitting 18 counties.
Yeah, the Corps, and I called and set up an appointment because we've got these projects through the disaster recovery that we're trying to get, one in Chris's precinct, 2 in mine, and we're not making very much headway on them.
Right.
And so I talked to the same people that Esther talked to, and they told me the same thing. And, you know, they believe that you will do it eventually because, you participate in the FEMA insurance program for your county. And also, if they mandate it, you're subject to fines if you do not do it. So now here are some costs that are not gonna be calculable at this time.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we don't know what the extent of it is. Supposedly this thing's in the comment period, but according to, the Corps,
Supposed to have been doing it all along or something.
they're going to enforce it, and you're gonna have to comply with it. And when the comment period changes anything, well, you know, they'll recognize that at the time, but the rules have not been formally adopted, but they're applying it as if they had. That's their instructions from EPA. It's not, Corps is not the one that's leading this. But that being said, that $12,000 may turn into $25,000. I don't know what it'll turn into. It's an unknown that, just like when the state tells us to do something, we don't have much choice because we're a subdivision state. And, but I think we're gonna have to look at some big dollars. And, I know I've talked with Bobby a little bit about this. I think I might have mentioned it to Chris. I haven't had any discussions with, Nubbin last week. But here several years ago, the commissioners in the road and bridge, we took some cuts. 5 or 6 years ago, when the oil and gas was booming and before the legislature changed the formula and cost us a considerable amount of money, we took, I think, about $500,000 and divided it up in road and bridge to help us do some catch-up, which was very helpful. If I remember right, we took $325,000 out of that, or we took 125 out of Chris's precinct, might have been Pat's precinct at the time. We took 100,000 out of mine, 75 out of Bob's, and 50 out of Bobby's. Isn't that the correct figures? That's what y'all remember? And that totaled up to $350,000. We did that to put the budget together 3 or 4 years ago. So that took a lot of the 500, 600,000, whatever it was. When I was talking to the judge yesterday, he couldn't remember. I thought it was 500, he thought it was 600. I don't know what it was.
It was 500,
500? Okay.
yeah.
And, but so we took a lot of that. Where I look at the budget, where I look at the contingency, and where I look at the people are that I talk to, I would propose that the commissioners in the road and bridge budget look at the same cut again. But now along with that, I think some of these other departments, and I'm gonna say sheriff's department, because when you get that budget, you start looking at it. The dollars, discretionary dollars, are in road and bridge and in sheriff's department. We went through, for the last 2 or 3 years, and we've cut the tax assessor, collector, and county clerks, and, you know, we've looked at about all the easy cuts that there are in this budget. And so, I was hoping that if road and bridge come up with 350, or somewhere in that neighborhood, that the sheriff's department could come up with a couple $100,000 plus. Now, I realize that they've got demands on them just like we've got demands on us. But you're either looking at a significant tax increase or you're looking at cuts. And I don't think you're fixing to do any significant tax increases, no matter what the rollback rate calculates to, or effective tax rate to bring in the same year revenue as last year. Those things are meaningless to the public. They don't even understand them. But they do understand when you raise taxes.
Yeah, considering all the discussion throughout the year that we've had, I think the overall sentiments is, it's enough. And so I'm inclined to agree with Ken.
Well, this is what I wanted to throw out. I think the commissioners need to take the lead. I think it's a little bit unfair that Road and Bridge take the hit, but the commissioners are over Road and Bridge, and the commissioners are the one that sets the tax rate, so that's the way it has been on the court since I've been on it 18 years.
Now, if we take another hit of 350 and add that to the 350, then that's a total of 700,000.
Yeah, and what we've done is actually take a couple $100,000 over where we were
Right.
when we got this.
And if it holds true, then, I mean, taking a $125,000 cut, I mean, that's gonna, that one's gonna hurt.
If
But
the-
whenever you talk about cuts, and I'm in agreement with both of y'all in reference to that, something's gonna have to be done, but when you talk about cuts, we're certainly not gonna agree. I mean, on what cuts is more important than other cuts, or less important, or whatever. And it definitely, something needs to be done. I agree with Mr. Pelt. Maybe Road and Bridge should take the lead and do this, but I also, and I don't think it would ever pass on a vote, but I also would recommend for us to cut what we gave last year, and that's the assistant county attorney and the investigator in the district attorney's office. Mr. Donos's raise, I propose we cut that.
Who's
All-
raised? Oh, okay.
All the increases we made last year, I'm looking at some of them, I don't know what it would come up to. But I would propose making the cuts, that we gave increases on last year. And then, with 350, what would that be, about 75 out of each commissioner's budget or more?
It's gonna be based on a percentage, I think.
What's this, Nubbin, to get to 350,000?
Yes, sir.
Well, it would be identical to what we took 4 years ago.
Oh, it wouldn't be equal on each one, it
No,
would be
no,
different.
Chris would take
I take the
125,000.
So
biggest
you're gonna
hit.
be,
I would take 100,000. You would take 75,000, and Bobby would take 50,000. I mean, I just mirrored the cuts we had last time. I mean, there's no.
and your
math.
recommendation on the sheriff's office, you said around
Well,
two?
I was hoping that we could get a couple $100,000.
But I am open to cutting what we gave last year. I hate to do it.
Those
But I'm open.
positions, are needed. Just like I said last year, I voted against it, but I didn't vote against it because I didn't think they needed it.
Right.
I voted against it because I thought if we're gonna give certain things to certain ones, let's give it to everybody, and we can't do that.
Right.
But that's why I voted that way, but, we made some significant increases last year, and if we're gonna start cutting, then I say let's cut the newest, what we gave last year and then go from there.
Well,
And like Mr. Pelt said, it's gonna take some big dollars to get this down, it's not just,
Yeah, you can't
well, I'm open to
tinker
that.
around the edges with, I mean, you can't get it out of the departments that don't have any funds, really. But what I was hoping was that, we would go 350, the sheriff's office could come up with at least 200,000, and that would be 550. And then you're looking at 805s, we'll just say 800, I mean, we round in figures. So then that would say that, we might end up having to take 200,000 or something out of the contingency. But, and that'd draw it down to $2,200,000 and something thousand.
I still don't even like that, but
I don't like that, but it's a matter of where you're gonna come up with the funds.
yeah.
well, I've throughout the year been looking at everything and have personally talked to the sheriff in reference if we had to make cuts in any budget, especially his. And the last I talked to him, I don't know if any of y'all have or not, he said that if there's any cuts made, that he would not voluntarily cut it, we would have to do it ourselves. So is that what you're proposing, that we go through these budgets and see where we're at and what we can cut, or what do you think?
I'd also like to get a list of what all the state contributes. I know like the county attorney's office gets a stipend for the CPS that she's using in a different type of disbursement, my understanding. and that we look at maybe anybody who gets state money, we look at adjusting, and if we can pull back some of the county funds and have them utilize the county funds in a more, what's the word, can't think of the word, but just in a more prudent way, where, in fat years, it goes to increasing employees' salaries, to maybe this year it goes to paying for, if she can't have an assistant attorney to handle CPS, then maybe she uses only that money to hire outside help. But we don't give her any more money, we just require her to use the state money.
Well, when you're talking about going through, and we're on the sheriff's budget, when you're talking about going through, there's 3 budgets in the sheriff's department. It's regular, the jail, and the narcotics.
Right.
Are we talking about cutting positions?
Well,
Because
you're
if you look at it,
You're losing 2. You're
right, if
losing
you look
Wayne.
at it, it's actually gonna be 3. He's got 3 personnel that got elected to
And
him.
that's probably gonna give him 150,000 right there.
Right, are we gonna replace those? We're gonna hold back on replacing them? I mean, there's certain,
You gotta have a patrol sergeant.
well, he can move someone up. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, when we start looking at that budget to make cuts, is that one area that we're gonna look at, not replacing these people?
Let me address the statement that you made, that you said the sheriff made. I really think that an elected official should look at his budget, or her budget. They know where it can be cut and affect their department the least. I would not like the sheriff telling me in Road and Bridge that where I had to make my cuts.
Right,
My feelings is that we should decide what we're willing to fund. And then the office holder, here is X number of dollars. Like you say, he's got narcotics, he's got jail, and he's got sheriff's office. He's got 3 departments.
Auto task force.
that's
Task
it.
force, got narcotics. So, and you and Bobby have a lot better understanding of that department, that office than I do. But it looks to me like that we decide, here's how much we can afford. And then the office holder tells us, okay, if you're saying this is all the money I've got, and that I've got to make $200,000 worth of cuts or $250 or whatever, here's where I'll have to make them. As I understood you, you're saying that the sheriff wants us to tell him where to cut. Now, you and Bobby may have a good feel for where he can cut. I'm not saying anybody needs
Well,
to cut.
I think I'm on board with what you're saying. I kinda disagree with us micromanaging
Right,
someone's
I
budget.
think that's a bad
I'd
precedent
rather not do that either.
Correct.
for us to
And I
start
wouldn't agree.
micromanaging any department.
Yeah.
And, I'll say this, and I've said it before, I think that all the employees we have are necessary for the services that we're asked to furnish to this county.
But at the same time, we have to have information from the department
That's
head
right.
in order to figure
Yeah.
whether there's a cut at all or not.
Yeah.
We have to have something to go on, and then it'd be up to him to decide how he wants to do it.
That's my feelings exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's gonna be tough to cut, the sheriff's department, because they're short-handed now. They can't make the calls they need to make. And, the sheriff and Kenny is bombarded with calls because the men didn't show up and run late, and so,
I don't think we'll have as big of a negative, response from these cuts as we would if we'd done a tax increase. But getting back to what Bobby's saying, there's gonna be a very, very big negative response, especially from the sheriff's department, because they deal with the public just about more than anyone else.
Well,
And if we make cuts here, that means they're gonna have to cut back on services they do. Number one, civil standbys. Because if your call load is high up here, then you're gonna have to take away some of the less important calls, and that would be civil standbys, and you're gonna get some negative response to that.
civil standbys is basically about the way the sheriff department politics, because that makes everybody happy.
Well, I
And
can,
you
I
can't
can,
cut the jail, because that's state mandated, so.
and I agree with everything's being said. But I know that when we take these cuts in, this road and bridge, I know that my calls are gonna increase.
Yes, sir.
They increased last time. And I have 52% of the county.
Yeah.
And Chris has the most roads. And so when you cut out $100,000 of services, basically what you're probably cutting out is $100,000 worth of materials.
Well, I've already made partial, restitution. I'm sure operating one-man show. So, I've already
But-
donated,
So the calls are gonna increase, we get the calls too.
and you're short.
I'm short, but I've stayed short because I knew last year when we set this budget together that this year was coming.
Yeah.
And the calls will just have to come, and I'll have to explain to them the best I can that we've had budget cuts. And that's like in the sheriff's department. We, in Road and Bridge, we only taking care of the rural areas. But I've got taxpayers in Koontz and Sour Lake and Rose Hill Acres that they're more concerned with tax rates than they are with roads because we don't maintain their roads.
Right.
And I
You got
assume
people
that
that live in the city of
that in the sheriff's
Sylvan.
department, you've got Sylvan, and Lumberton, and Sour Lake, and Koontz, and Rose Hill Acres who have their own, well, Rose Hill Acres doesn't have any sheriff, any city police, but they feel they're already paying for city police.
Well,
And so they're more concerned about their tax rate, and they're not very sensitive to your problems of getting calls.
That's
I
right.
know the people in Sour Lake that I talk to, they don't care how many calls I get from Botaw and Thicket and Pinewood and Keith Road because they feel they're being double taxed anyway, that they're being taxed to pay for their roads and they're being taxed to pay for rural roads.
Well, Lumberton, that pays the most taxes of any entity and anybody in the county. Lumberton supports the county, and they don't want a tax
Well, I don't
increase.
agree there, Bobby.
Well, I do,
Because-
I do, but I saw the figures.
You look right here, $745 million of, oil and gas,
Well, I'm talking about as far as taxes paid.
well, they pay taxes. $745 million worth of valuation.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was talking about. I was
Okay.
talking about county taxes. So they don't want a tax increase. And I don't
Right.
blame them, because
I
that,
don't blame them either.
well, I think if we focus on what the goal is and people don't take it personal, if they understand the overall is to keep the county financially healthy, maintain salary increases for our current employees, and what have you, because that's the overall goal. I don't think anybody here wants to cut anybody.
no,
I
Don't
don't.
want to, but
I don't want to cut.
I've already cut.
I'm gonna kick and scream and cry in private.
well, I didn't want another one.
No.
I didn't want another one, but I made up my mind
Yeah.
last year at this time that we probably were gonna be, because the commissioners have to set the tax rate.
I'm down to 4 men. One of them's on vacation, one called in sick. The other two just has to try to find, go out there and do something that they can do by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I got a secretary and 7 for 184 miles of road. No way we can cover it.
you're right, but I got twice as much traffic.
But you don't have any oil field traffic
You're
or
right,
lumber traffic.
you're
logging
right.
traffic. So,
You're right.
I mean, but all of this is conditions we operate under. But the thing about it is, I don't see any appetite for a tax increase. And with that being said, and not wanting to pull the contingency fund any lower, there is no magic.
Okay, what is the contingency right now? I'm confused on this.
$2,561,193.
Oh, wait a minute. Where'd that-
I don't know where it pages on, Bobby, but she read it out to me.
Yeah, I
2
got
million.
it, I got it circled here, 2,574,000, yeah, okay.
That was at the beginning.
Somehow I thought we was down to 2,000,001, wasn't we down to,
And that was at the beginning, Bubba. We're a little bit lower than that.
at the beginning of what?
The year. beginning of the budget year last year.
Oh, okay, that's where I got that's what I got the one, okay.
Well,
With 2561.
and what I've been looking at is if we're, say, 2.5 million now with a contingency fund, if we can put together a budget that does not require over $250,000 of contingency fund, we're still above 2 million. And next year, we might have to take another 250,000 out of the contingency fund. But now, for those not familiar with contingency fund, 18 years ago, when I went on this court, we had zero contingency fund, and we're running a negative of about 250,000. Of course, as Bobby knows, because he and the judge came on 2 years later, we made some corrections. We sold the landfill. We had a drilling boom took place, and our goal was to build a contingency fund of 3 million. Well, because of the drilling boom, we ultimately built the contingency fund to $5 million. Then the legislature passed a law that gave relief to the oil and gas companies, and the formula was changed, and in the next 3 years, we lost about $2 million out of contingency fund. So,
I mean, you could find people that would argue with us having a contingency fund.
your predecessor was one, he didn't believe in contingency funds. He believed you spent every bit of money, but that's
But
not
they
a
had,
good
the
concept.
average person out there hadn't stopped to think about, we need money between October the first and
Right.
about the middle of December. All right, and if a disaster hits like we've had two of them, we didn't have to borrow money. We had it. So, do
Well,
you have a savings account or do you not have a savings
And
account?
as you remember, this was the $3 million, at that time, $3 million would basically operate your county, October, November, and December until
Right.
taxes started
Right,
in.
right.
Actually, based on that precept, we probably need about $3.5 to $4 million.
Well, when we first started all this, I thought we tried to keep it around 3 million.
That was our goal. But with the loss of the oil and gas due to the legislative change, now it's been changed back, but during that time, the wells that had been discovered with this 3D seismic, they depleted. That horse is out of the barn and gone and won't ever come back.
Yeah.
So we lost a couple of million
I
more.
don't think we
more.
ought to take any more out of contingency. Now, that's the way I feel. I don't think we ought to.
Well, then
But I'm
we're all
open.
on the
But
same
I'm
page.
open.
Let's start working on these cuts that we've recommended and see where we can go from there.
That's, I think, the approach we should take. We should say, okay, we're gonna make the cuts, and then when we get down to the end, we'll make a decision as to, we'll see the cuts we've made, and then we can make a decision as, do we take $250 out of the contingency fund, or do we raise taxes 1 cent? I mean, that would be,
I'm open to, we'll see.
okay, we'll see at that time. But first, are we in agreement that we will make $350,000 out of road and bridge?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No,
Bobby?
Yeah.
I ain't in agreement with that, but if that's what it works out, I'll have to go with
Okay,
it.
well,
And,
you're in partial agreement that we'll try it.
Partial agreement
Okay,
that we'll
okay.
try.
What's the bottom number, Miss Gore, between, regardless of what our numbers are gonna be, between a 3% raise and a 2%? I was looking at $1,060,000 and then 957.
It's about 100,000.
So
I didn't think it was that much.
is there even an option of zero?
Oh, there's option 0, but I would.
I think we need to give it.
I do too. I do
would guess
too,
it for
but
the simple reason that, and this was used 1 year when the county was running a negative, as Linda won county clerk at that time. But the county was spending more than it's taking in, which the county's by law obligated to give a balanced budget. But they were juggling figures when I came on the court by assigning income to the landfill, which the landfill never made income. I mean, it made income, but it didn't make any profit. And it was a negative. And ran a negative, and historically had run a negative for as long as they'd had it. So it was not truthful to the taxpayers to say, okay, we need $150,000 to balance our budget. We'll show the landfill making $150,000, because it was not gonna make 100. But we sold the landfill. And that got our contingency fund started. come out with about $1 million plus. But, if we take this approach here, and we make the cuts, and we get it down to where we're within a couple $100,000, then we can make the decision. In looking at the deal, and, you know, there's been expressed, looking at the position that we created last year, my feelings are, and I have talked to one of the district judges, haven't talked to the other one, that they're starting to make progress up there. One of the things we discussed last year, and I don't think we've been in it long enough to, for the public to know whether there's been a good change in the made or not, but the reason we added in David's department, we added in, I guess, Rebecca's, although that was something, here again, state mandated on the child protective service cases. And this is what happened, the state mandates something, we don't have any choice. But I do know that we have it, the courts are handling more cases. They're cleaning up their docket. Judge Thomas told me that he feels that the DA's office is, you know, getting more production out of it and stuff like this. So I would hate to see this court come in and take that position back unless we absolutely have to, because one of the great things in the public's mind was that it was taking years to get a civil case through, and we know what's happening on the criminal side. There was an extra long time to get a criminal case done. And the public was not satisfied, and I don't think the public was getting the justice that they needed with these long delays in the trials, because the lawyers were continuing to cost people. On the criminal side, witnesses die, circumstances change, and the longer you go, the less chance of getting true justice for the victims of these crimes. So, but, you know, everything's on the table. But if we can make this 350, then I think we need to have, the judge and I talked yesterday, and there's, you know, like you mentioned, there's people that's been elected, will be elected. And so if you don't replace those people, and to me it's better to not replace somebody than it is to have to come in and lay somebody off later. Then to get $200,000 out of the sheriff's department, all money is needed, but in budgets that big, that's the largest budget in the court, in our budget. Maybe a little tough, but I would like to see us aim for $200,000. And then Bobby has mentioned the fees. When Esther's back, I think they need to look at these fees. I think those fees are going to be a little bit uncontrollable because they're going to be dictated by circumstances outside of this court's control, and they're going to be in the form of mandates because this county has to have a FEMA insurance program because we have too many of our citizens that are.
Well, with that in mind, where are we on this new subdivision rules and regulations? Where are we on that?
I would say maybe halfway through it. We'll have another
Oh.
meeting after the
Okay.
next court.
But I see one fallacy, and one thing I'm against this, whatever, is I'm not called to do a walkthrough on those things.
You should be.
You're right, but I'm not called.
Every commissioner should be
They
called.
they go out 2 or 3 times, and that man makes money every time he goes out, and then all of a sudden I get a call.
Yeah.
About the 3rd or 4th walkthrough, I get a call.
I can say here in the last 6 months, I've got calls on just about every one, but prior to that, I wasn't getting any.
Well, I had,
And I don't think Mr. Kirkendall has that problem to deal with, but more so you and I and Mr. Pelt.
Right.
And-
Well, more so you and Bobby.
Right.
but if we go out there, if Esther and I goes out there and looks at a subdivision, we can pretty well tell, basically by looking at it, whether it's basically right or not. And then if that looks acceptable, then call the engineer, but that ain't the way it's been handled.
Well, this is something we need to visit with Esther about procedure. And certainly a commissioner ought to have the opportunity to go and look at a road that, that they're gonna have to inherit. I would make this comment about subdivisions, and I think Esther will agree. In the area where the subdivisions have been taking place, it is gonna be very difficult to get one built. For now, they're gonna have to have a Corps of Engineers permit,
For the retention pond.
and they're gonna, our subdivision specifications are gonna include that they have to have a retention pond to retain that water. We cannot stand any more water in the Pine Island Bio watershed. But I think the EPA is going to, a lot of these areas that this land has been bought, and people have subdivisions planned for it, it's gonna be very difficult to get this EPA permit, which comes through the Corps. And so I think a lot of our subdivision growth is going to be limited or greatly curtailed unless the people wanna move north in the area where these permits can be obtained.
Well, I've been trying to get the Chamber of Commerce down in Lumpton to put up a sign at the Y, said Lumpton is full, keep going north.
That's a good idea, Bobby, but
We
they-
keep paying them not to put it up.
Okay,
I would
But-
also like to, get a list of the departments getting state money and to see how those departments are utilizing, cause you might come up with another 100 to 150,000 there.
could. Any avenue that anyone can think of, I think we need to look at it. We've got adequate time to look at it.
What do you call adequate time now?
Well, we got
Couple days.
a couple of months. We got July and August. We'll need to adopt a budget in August.
I understand that, but you said adequate time to look at, so when's our next meeting?
That'll be up to Judge Caraway.
What,
Our next court meeting's the 14th of July.
And
That's
I would
2
have an
weeks.
idea that he's going to, want to schedule a budget meeting that day possibly. Go ahead, Noah.
so we're in agreements today, 350 in road and bridge, and the recommendation is 200 for sheriff.
Ask the sheriff's department to come up with
Who's
200.
gonna present that to the sheriff?
Bobby? No,
I guess the judge will give it.
yeah, I would,
When you say we are in agreement, you can leave me out because I am not in an agreement yet.
okay. Well, agreement to ask.
You're in
Agreement to
agreement,
consider.
you're in agreement that cuts need to be made. As a-
I'm not even gonna agree to that.
Okay.
Where do you agree to look at it?
I agree to look at it.
Okay, well, that's good.
Every department is operating on, well, nearly every department. Oh, yeah, I better just be quiet now.
Okay. I'm gonna discuss all this with Judge Caraway, and, I think he's the proper one to sit down with the sheriff. And, if he wants a commissioner, we'll choose you or Bobby to go with it. But, no, seriously, it's something we've got to take a look at. I think with the elections that have taken place in his, hopefully that will help ease his burden. And, I don't know if anything's gonna ease the commissioner's burden on the road and bridge, but, it's a fact of life.
No, cause I'm not excited at all. I mean, I'm doing it cause you gotta do it, but
Well, I'm doing it because
you gotta do
come
it.
2 months from now, we're gonna be voting on tax rate.
That's right.
And no department's gonna vote on tax rate except the commissioners.
Right.
And
That's
I'm doing it, or I'm considering it like Bobby said, because next year, Bobby won't be here, the judge won't be here, but it will be easier for me to make cuts in somebody else's department after I've done cut mine.
You better
Yeah.
believe it.
Well, I think we have, by virtue of the fact that we're in charge of the budget, and we have to raise the taxes, then it's incumbent on us, I think, to take the lead in it. And this will be 2 times in a row that we've taken the lead. And,
Well, my precinct 4 is gonna be in the best position to take the cut I'm not saying we need to do it, but it's gonna be in the best position because the last two roads that I need to do is gonna be done out of this budget.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have any more roads to overlay for quite a while.
You're talking
So-
about in this coming budget?
In this budget, we already got.
Oh, okay.
So I'm, you know.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you know your budget, and I'm not being facetious. You know your budget better than anyone knows the budget. Now, of course, Chris and I, Precinct 3 and Precinct 2 are used to operating with, you know, a lot less funds than what we needed. No one gets exactly as much as they needed. But is your budget such that you can take 75,000? Don't answer that today. Just look at it because Precinct 3 and Precinct 2 have a lot of miles of road that we're trying to maintain. And we're the ones that are getting the oil field traffic and the logging traffic, basically. Now, Nubbin has some. But these big trucks are the ones that work on our roads. And, you know, we don't have enough money, we'll never have enough money. But if your budget can be adjusted some more, well then, certainly would be a help. And I would just ask everyone to look at it and, you know, and see what you can do. But I do think, and this is what the judge had hoped to do today, was kind of lay out a roadmap of where we need to go. I think we all know where we need to go. It's just how do we get there? And if the commissioners come up with 350, and if we can ask the sheriff to come up with 200, if he wants to come up with more, that'd be fine. But the only thing I do resist is telling him how to do his cuts.
The only answer I would be able to give on that 75,000 would be after these two roads are done, in which I'm at a deadlock there. And the man that we awarded the contract to has not made any effort, so I've got to get on the agenda, go out again.
You can't just go back to the second
Well,
bid?
Jackie was checking on that, and Jackie says she thinks we gotta go back, gotta get on the agenda to go out again. So now I haven't,
Is it because he's not,
he ain't contacted us. His 30 days is up.
well, in that agreement, cause I double checked on mine as well, it says that if the 30 days is up, or if the commissioner approves extension for whatever reason.
I ain't gonna approve
Okay,
it,
all right,
because he ain't contacted me.
then we would have to go out again.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a bid coming in on
Well,
the
see,
next.
there's about 200,000 right, well, let's see, about 195,000 right that I've got now
Yeah.
that, I'm using for this year.
But you do anticipate getting that in this year's budget?
Oh, I intend to if we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you, and you know the conditions of your road, if, this will pretty well asphalt all your roads.
Half of this road is yours.
But I'm doing half of yours, Bobby. I've got a bid out no, I don't have it out yet, but I'm gonna do half of yours. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the half you're doing.
A half of Creekwood, half of Martin Road's yours.
Okay, but well, not a half of Keith's Road, half the first mile or something of Keith's Road's yours. But anyway, we're hoping to get that.
You got a good deal. I'm doing 1 mile, 1 mile and 9/10 to, my half of the Keith Road, which is 1 mile and 1/10.
Well, that's modern math, that ought to equal out, Bobby. Anyway, that should get your precinct's getting in pretty good shape.
Right.
Yeah, and
And
so,
all I'll have is driveway material and,
yeah.
and
So,
fuel.
you know, if you see that, you know, that you can cut some more, well, it would certainly help out on this budget because we're
And
either
I've
gonna be
cut-
taking some out of contingency or we're gonna
I've
be
cut
running
one
back.
employee, that's how much is one employee?
In your precinct?
Yeah, but what would it be, 50,000?
It's probably about 50,000 with burdens and everything. Yeah, so, okay, so 350 plus out of the road and bridge, and we're gonna ask the sheriff for 200,000. And, then any other cuts that we can find, anybody that volunteers, and, Nubbin, are you still wanting to, look at what we did last year? Is that your feelings, or?
I don't know if I know Chris expressed that he would look at that, but, if Ms. Gore could give me a number of what that, I've got a list right here of what our increases were, but I don't have a bottom number.
Yeah.
And I know you've expressed your feelings,
Yeah.
Mr. Pelt, about what the judge said. It was an assistant, county attorney, an investigator in the, district attorney's office, increase in, salaries and floodplain maintenance and collection improvements. I don't think the collection improvements was significant over there.
Well, I don't think, like in Rebecca's with the Child Protection Service, I don't think we have much choice.
No,
Now-
but there is access to some state money that's not being utilized.
Well, if we could get
And
some
what
state
Mr.
money.
Kirkendall requested on the state fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Is that
now,
something that you can do?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
it's not a big amount, but we did put some in last year and maybe the judge may have already considered this, I don't know. On that new mandate where we have to have 2 attorneys in capital murder cases. I talked to the judge yesterday, and he did not know of any that would be coming up this year. So it's possible that, I don't know how much we'd allowed for each, 50,000, I think, apiece, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think we increased it to 90, didn't we?
That's something, but for 2 attorneys.
But he knew something was coming up for this past budget too, so
Yeah,
it was a
but
reason.
he doesn't know of anything coming up for the next one.
Well, Glenda, why do we need 10,000 increase
So it's
when
possible.
next year is not election year? Why do we
And he
need,
may have already dropped it off, I don't know.
why do we need 10,000 increase when next year is not an election year?
I don't know, but we always run out of money in election
Right,
year.
but
So,
next year's not election year, so why do we need,
well,
Be amendments.
do what?
It'll be an amendment election.
The
won't it?
amendment election, yeah. And that's another thing, on the, election workers, they only get paid $7 an hour. And even if theirs could be increased to $7.50,
That's minimum wage, isn't it?
and that's what, and that's what the parties pay is $7.50.
Ours should be
And-
750.
Yeah,
You're not
and
talking about
I
much
think maybe
money.
we might could get more people to be interested in.
But how do we get by without complying with the law?
It's always been $7.
Scratch that on the tape.
But
Okay.
that would be good if we could get theirs up to $7.50.
I'll share that with Judge Carraway. I don't think there'd be any objection
We
to
have
getting in
Yeah,
compliance.
I've mentioned it too.
something else that we approved in one of our, meetings for, Mr. Sheffield is for him to pursue a grant, a matching grant that we're gonna have to deal with as well, and that's gonna be around September. I think he said that was around 25,000. That was for an additional, assistant prosecutor, I believe. I don't know what the status is. I haven't talked to Mr.
I don't
Sheffield
know.
about that, but, I don't guess that was included in the proposals or the, form we had on the
But I
budget.
do remember that, because we partially funded it
We
this year.
partially funded it, yeah.
And just for a few months.
Right, yeah,
You know.
but it comes back up.
And I don't even know if he got it. He
I think he
applied
did.
for it.
I think he did, because that's through the Regional Planning Commission.
Okay.
Thank
No,
you, yeah.
on those elections too, we have to repair our machines, and our machines are getting kinda old too. And we probably need to buy a couple more, so that's.
They're about, what, $3,400 a piece or something like that?
Well, and I know I'm gonna ask y'all too, if you have runoffs and all that, to put somebody up in Caney Head. We hadn't been doing that, but we need to do that.
okay, good.
Yes. We need to do that.
Well, if you need it, that's one thing.
And
but-
if we're not,
But,
you know.
but what I was going by is next year's not an election year, so it just kinda looks strange, there's a $10,000 increase.
Well, what else we got, Ken?
Just thinking,
On the, and this question might have already been answered in past budget hearings last year, but it's something that, I was real curious about. On the, mandated, court-appointed attorneys, I think we got $500,000 that we put into the budget for all that. Isn't it somewhere that says if we use up to 8% of our budget, we can get reimbursed, or have we ever done
but
that?
I believe the 8% is on the indigent healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the indigent healthcare is in that 500,000, isn't it? Or is it separate?
No, it should be
Okay.
separate, should be a
This is
separate
a
budget
general
item.
election.
But now the judge, they're looking at the
Yeah, that's-
indigent
This is a big
healthcare deal
That's
right
in
now.
next year's budget.
amendment election being the next.
We've never reached the 8% since I've been on the court. But each session of the legislature, there's laws introduced that if you don't use it, that access goes to some other fund in other state. So far, that hasn't been knocked down, but each year we get a little bit closer to the 8%. And, but the judge was gonna do some work on that, and, cause we don't budget 8%.
Right.
We just
right.
know that by law, we have to come up with 8% if needed. On the indigent attorneys, that goes up almost every year.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's a direct relationship to crime, and you're obligated to appoint attorneys to indigents. And then last year was the first year for the 2 attorneys for capital murder cases. And so hopefully now, one of the things that I don't think we had any in this year's budget was moving of trials either. You know, we seem to have kind of gotten away from that, hopefully.
Change of venue.
Yeah, every change of venue cost us $50,000
Right.
minimum. So, but the trend that I see, and I think this is what the judge sees, and y'all probably do too, as Hardin County continues to gain 600 to 800 people a year, the needs go up, but the values don't go up correspondingly. So unless, now, we do have, next year, this pipeline, the Trans-Canada pipeline should be in full operation. We're getting partial benefit out of it this year. And then we were notified here, I guess a couple of months ago, that they're going to lay another line that's going to involve a little bit more length than this one here. So, you know, that's a possible $30 million of valuation there when they get around to it. I don't know, I've heard rumors that British Petroleum is looking at a play up here north of Silsbee, deep play.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you get in those deep, if that would materialize, and, you know, they would develop some prospects up there, and when you get in those deep wells, if one of them hits, one well can easily add $25 to $50 million value to, but they're short-lived. But the legislature does have the formula changed back now. So if there is a discovery, we will get the benefit of it. And, but that would be great, because that's money that, you know, you don't anticipate. On the other side, with this EPA new rules and their new authorities, some of the normal building that you see down in the Lumberton area on Subdivision and stuff, we could see it start to taper off. And somewheres along the line, although it doesn't look like right now, I see they're clearing off a corner next to where you go into Bobby's driveway to build something. What is that, Bobby?
Molly King.
Okay, that's the molecule. And then right back up the road, I see they're gonna build another fast,
Snow
fountain.
cone stand.
Oh, is that a snow cone stand? Well,
Yeah.
they're clearing off a lot of land for a snow cone stand.
That's there
No,
by
wait,
your,
no,
that's
no.
there by your
Yeah, my driveway, there's a snow cone stand. Where else you talking about?
Well, it's called a Fountain King or Fountain.
That's it, snow cone stand.
Oh, okay.
Tamale King's up there at the.
Okay.
Blight, Walton.
Yeah.
But pretty soon, I was looking as I was driving through this last week, almost every vacant spot on 69 is getting taken up, so the fast food
Well,
place is bound to drop off. So,
Luke Latino is developing something there just north of his property there.
Yeah.
He's building a road out there now, but I'm not real sure what it is.
but we have been dependent on something like 40, 45 million a year in new construction in Hardin County. And, that could drop off.
It ain't gonna drop off,
I hope not.
not as long as Beaumont's in the news.
Okay, anyone else have any thoughts, anything you want to? The judge will probably set a budget hearing up for next court. He might not, he might wait until we, kind of give time for these things to gel.
You know, this has sure changed quite a bit over the years. Back in the sixties, the commissioner just got a call from the judge, and the judge told the commissioner how much money he could spend.
Yeah, that's not the way
And
the law.
that was the reason they were called road commissioner, because that's all they handled.
Yeah. Well, that was never their full duties, but that's the way they accepted it.
Right,
But things changed, Bob,
right.
and, I think for the better.
That takes a lot of pressure off the judge.
Well, it should, because, the way the state's organized and the commissioner's court is a 5-person court. Everybody having an equal vote.
Not
Yeah.
always.
If you're gonna have to vote, you ought to have a say. So,
What
but we,
I've tried to figure out since I've sat here the little short time I've been here is how to please everybody.
well, you'll never do that.
When you get that figured out,
Yeah.
write a book and you can retire.
You'll never get that figured out, but we have had good courts for the last 16, 18 years. We've had, courts that worked on the problem for Hardin County, and, we've been able to come together and, didn't always vote exactly like, but we've always been able to come together and with a plan that was in the best interest of the taxpayers, and that's basically what you
Well,
need to do.
I saw a plaque here a while back, said, if every man thinks alike, somebody's not thinking.
That's General Patton.
What is it?
That's General Patton. If everybody's thinking the same thing, somebody's not thinking alike, somebody's not thinking. Okay. We have our esteemed county agent here today. Joseph, we're glad to have you here. Would you like to introduce your visitor to us?
Yes, sir, sure. This is Dakota Goss. She's a local high school student in Silsbee, ISD,
Okay.
and she's job shadowing for the next month. So I'm just showing her around, and we just happened into the Commissioner's Court meeting today.
Well, it's good to have y'all here. It's great to have her. I thought maybe she was a secret agent or something, cruising the court.
No, these are the commissioners for the county.
And, I'm Ken Pelt. I'm Commissioner Sets over there. Judge Caraway is ill today. Commissioner Nubbin Cooper.
Newman.
That's what I said. Nubbin Cooper, Commissioner Chris Kirkendall, and Commissioner Bobby Franklin.
Where do you live?
In Sylvie on 1122.
And this
She's
is
my
Glenda
precinct.
Austin, our county clerk,
You-
and
you-
Angela Gore is our auditor.
He belongs to you.
Yes.
So, but we're always glad to have young people here, see how the court works, and wish more people understood it.
Well, I'm gonna try to get my 4-H a little more involved.
Well, great,
but,
great.
That's a slow
That's
moving
great.
thing.
They need to be involved. People need to know how needs to know how their government operates.
Yes, sir. I believe so
Yeah.
too.
The future of this county depends on them young ones.
That's right. Especially paying taxes and paying social security. Good to have y'all here.
Yes, sir. I think we're gonna step on out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Nevin, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Chris, Bobby,
No, sir?
Angela?
Get the information that you've requested.
Okay. Okay. Appreciate it, everybody, and it won't be all that bad.
Do we adjourn?
Yeah, we're adjourned. Did I hear a motion?
to adjourn? Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All voted for. Court's adjourned.
Have a problem getting that motion. Thank you, Angela. You did a great job putting this together.